Welcome back to my channel, you guys. Welcome if you are new. If you're like me, you've been paying attention to all of this tariff controversy, and I think you're going to be shocked on what they're not telling us. Stay tuned.
God knows 31 reasons you were called to be a woman. The God, virtuous woman he needs. God knows 31 reasons. 31 reasons why. God knows 31 reasons you were called to be a woman.
President Trump has been talking about reciprocal tariffs on foreign nations and putting money back into the Americans' pockets, calling it Make America Wealthy Again, branding April 2nd as Liberation Day. But what does he really mean by all of this? Now, before we get into what this means for Americans, let's get some clarity on reciprocal tariffs and why they are so important. It says, tariffs were the greatest, approaching 95% at times, source of federal revenue until the federal income tax began at 1913. For well over a century, the federal government was largely financed by tariffs, averaging about 20% on foreign imports. At the end of the American Civil War in 1865, about 63% of federal income was generated by the excise taxes. And so excise taxes looks like cigarettes, alcohol, fuel taxes, airline tickets, phone services, etc. Okay. More than twice the 25.4% generated by tariffs. In 1915, during World War I, tariffs generated 30.1% of revenues. Since 1935, tariff income has continued to be a declining percentage of federal tax income. What does this all mean? Simply that before 1913, the federal income tax was primarily being funded by foreign nations. Okay. And prior to the 16th Amendment being ratified, those funds were coming from other nations. And now they're now coming primarily out of the Americans' people pockets. So we as Americans are funding our government as well as other nations. And so Trump is trying to reverse this. He's trying to go back to the times before 1913, before all of this, before they decided that tariffs needed to decline and the American people needed to pay out of their own pockets. When we're dealing with reciprocal tariffs, it's just simply talking about being sure that things are done fairly and equally on both sides. So if I tax you 10%, you tax me 10%. That will be ultimately fair, correct? And so things since 1913 have gotten extremely unfair. And so we've heard President Trump talk about this. We've been paying primarily majority of the exporting and the importing of goods than other countries. And so he wants to get us back to the days of 1913, where we do not have to pay as much or any of those reciprocal tariffs. A public article says President Trump has unveiled sweeping reciprocal tariffs on goods from the world over, plus a baseline tariff on U.S. imports from virtually all countries, as he seeks to reshape decades of U.S. trade policy despite warnings of higher costs for American businesses and consumers. The president announced a 10% minimum tariff to apply to goods from all countries. However, certain trading partners will face higher reciprocal tariffs aimed at penalizing them for their trade barriers. Those taxes on imported goods are calculated on a country-by-country basis, and the levels Trump announced for some trading partners are substantial. He said he plans to impose 34% tariffs on China, 20% on the European Union, and 24% on Japan, among an array of other trading partners. Of course, he's doing this, right? He's based on various articles, Trump, and based on his announcement at the Rose Garden on April 2nd. He's doing this because if other countries have been unfair over the years and have set up trade barriers, he is going to penalize them. All right. And so that's only fair because you've been getting away. You've been getting by for decades. And so now it's time to pay up. All right. And so I don't have a problem with this whatsoever. And anybody that has done enough research or have further clarity on what this is what Trump is indeed trying to do, common sense would say, yeah, this may cause a little bit of hiccups along the way, but ultimately it will balance things out, right? So we've dealt with unprecedented inflation for the last 4 years under the demonic Biden administration. Okay, and so we've survived it. Most of us have survived it, and so if there's a little bit of inflection on prices, hey, I'm all for it if this means for us to get back to foreign nations paying primarily all of the tariffs, putting money back into the American people's pocket. And this particular TikToker I saw, he explains it pretty well.
Whatever you think of Trump, his economic plan makes complete sense. The US has 36 trillion in debt. In 2025, they will spend 6 trillion, but will only collect 4 trillion in revenue. So they need to borrow 2 trillion, and this will increase their debt to 38 trillion. Trump economic plan is based on 3 levers. Number 1, cut expenses by 1 trillion, which is Doge, Elon Musk. He's targeting waste and fraud, like social security payments for people who are 150 years old. That is just fraud. 2, increasing revenue by 1 to 2 trillion through, number 1, tariffs. They will increase tariffs from 50 billion to 500 billion target. People will say, but other countries will retaliate. They will not be able to do it. The US is the biggest customer on earth. They consume 20 trillion every year. They are the biggest importer. They import 3 trillion every year. Plus, the current tariffs is actually not fair. Why should US cars entering Europe faces 10% tariffs while the European cars entering the US just pay 2.5%? It's not fair. And because of the tariff changes, it now makes economic sense to build factories and businesses inside the US again. That means more jobs, means tax-paying businesses, and more foreign investment coming in. He will also increase revenue by deregulation. He will remove unnecessary regulations and rules, making it easier to do business, so business can grow faster, generate more tax revenues. He will also make this gold card, which is offering lifetime US residency for 5 million. I think at least 1 or 2 million individuals globally can afford it. So if just 10% of them, if just 100,000 people buy this card, that's 1 trillion in incremental revenue. The third lever is he will reduce taxes. If he successfully cut 1 trillion in waste and expenses and add 1 to 2 trillion in revenue, the US will have a surplus. They will have more money than they want. So he will cut taxes. For individuals, anyone gaining more than 150K, he will make them pay 0 taxes. And on corporate taxes, he will go down from the current 21% to 15%, compared to the European average of 22%. France average is 25, I think, and Germany is 30. So at 15% corporate tax, the US will become one of the most business attractive countries on earth.
This is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it doesn't really get any clearer to the, common sense mindset. And so I see this as clear as crystal on what Trump is implementing and trying to do. And so we can get caught up a lot in the controversy of it all and everyone's opinion, because as I was researching this topic, I mean, everyone has an opinion, and some folks want to look at certain pieces of information, but they won't go back as far as 1913, right? I've noticed with certain articles where they just want to discuss Trump last term and what he did based on his last term. And so, but that's not it in a nutshell. So I like to dig a little bit deeper, and even looking at the chart that Trump presented on April 2nd, where he, of course, lets us, further understand and have clarity on who's going to be taxed what, as far as the tariffs are concerned. As you look at the numbers that are in blue and white, versus the ones that are in gold, he just divided, it looks like, by 2. So the 67% becomes 34, the 39% becomes 20, the 90% becomes 46%. So just divvying that up into 2 lets us arrive at the numbers in gold. And so, as stated prior, Trump is penalizing those countries. Okay, it's very clear, those countries that have put up trade barriers and they have overtaxed us on exporting and importing goods for decades. And so now it's time to pay up. It's harsh. It's straight up, and it's really gutsy. Most politicians would not have the galls to do what Trump is doing. But I believe that's why practically about 80% of America voted for him, because we understand that he doesn't mind digging his heels in and really rolling up his sleeves and getting the job done. One of the things that Trump did mention in his presentation on Liberation Day, he did state, to all of the foreign presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, ambassadors, and everyone else who will soon be calling to ask for exceptions from these tariffs, I say terminate your own tariffs, drop your barriers, don't manipulate your currencies. Okay, again, I love this statement because if you've ever read Trump's book, Art of the Deal, this man is a deal maker. And you notice in his statement, he says, those of you that will soon be calling. So he's already in expectations, knowing exactly what's going to happen. It's just like folks that have a gift in playing basketball, playing football, in drawing, and singing. It's a gift. And I truly believe with Trump, his gift is to make deals. He knows how to bring folks to the table. He knows how to negotiate. And based on what he's done thus far, we have over 1/4 of the countries in the world that have already made the phone call to now begin negotiations, which is absolutely huge. And Secretary Bessent said this.
Negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation. I'm not calling it a trade war, but I'm saying that China has escalated, and President Trump responded very courageously to that. It signals that President Trump cares about trade and that we want to negotiate in good faith. And as I said, each one of these is going to be a separate, bespoke negotiation. So we are confident that, having seen the other side of where this could go, and it was like I said last week, the market didn't understand. Those were maximum levels. The countries can think about those levels as they come to us to bring down their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers. We're going to discuss currency manipulation, subsidy of labor and industry.
And there you go. There you have it. The Deal Maker, the Art of the Deal. If you all don't have the book, I would suggest you grab it because this will explain a lot of who Trump is. And so he has the authority, right? He has 75 plus countries coming to negotiate. That means he is holding the gavel, if you will, and he has the upper hand. And so when you are in that position, you now are saying, yo, let's compromise. Let's see what we can come up with that will be reciprocal, which simply means where it would be balanced on both sides, done fairly and wholly and completely. And so what that is a huge win, you all. That's a huge win for us. It's getting us back to where Trump will cause the other countries to pay primarily to do business with us, majority of the taxes. And that puts money back in our pockets. And so, he's keeping to what he campaigned on as far as America first. America first. It's enough of us being last, second, and just funding other countries because of all of their woes and all that what they got going on, which seems like it's never ending. And so we just keep being taxed and taxed and taxed, right, to fund what we have going on. And then, of course, other countries all worldwide. And so I'm just all game for this. I just know this is just the beginning of Make America Wealthy Again. This is going to be a phenomenal time. And I understand even further why Trump called April 2nd Liberation Day. Is a opportunity where we are getting our respect back as Americans, and where we are showcasing why we are the world's number one country, why we are the people that everyone looks to, and we have the influence in the world. Now, of course, people like China is not exactly happy about it, right? So whenever you have the galls to do something like President Trump is doing, which is saying, yo, I'm going up on the tariffs, you're going to expect it's going to be some people that or presidents or prime ministers that will bite back, right? They will play the tit for tat game and potentially try to get into a trade war. And then, of course, causes everybody to kind of have a restraint and, have a drawback. Is this a good idea? But of course, you have China wanting to play, right? They want to try to say, yo, you're not going to have the upper hand on us. But unfortunately, it's to their downfall. Watch this.
Trump then warned that he may raise tariffs on China by another 50%. The CCP responded by saying it's ready to fight to the end. While the Chinese government is showing a tough stance, many businesses in China are already feeling the pain. On April 7th, a TikToker filmed a clothing factory that had shut down and said the clothing industry is in serious trouble. All the machines in his factory are about to stop. He said this year is going to be incredibly tough. That same day, another TikToker posted a similar scene, workers moving goods around inside a clothing factory. He wrote that as soon as the U.S. swung its tariff hammer, the impact finally hit the apparel industry. His factory originally had orders scheduled through the end of July, but now over 6,000 down jackets have been put on hold, and their ready-to-ship products are piling up in the warehouse. Both offline and online sales are struggling this year. Even live stream selling isn't working anymore. With sluggish consumer demand and weak domestic sales, the foreign trade slowdown is pushing more exporters into the domestic market, creating even more excess production. He said this year's apparel industry is like a pressure cooker. He is surrounded on all sides, and no country is engaging with China normally anymore. Veteran media figure Mr. Go believes that the differences between China and the U.S. are not just about tariffs, and that Trump's tariff hikes are aimed at countries around the world. He points out that China's trade surplus with the U.S. nearly reached $300 billion last year, something President Trump greatly dislikes. He added that U.S.-Vietnam trade can be resolved through negotiations between the leaders of the countries, including lowering tariffs on Vietnamese products entering the U.S. But this is not the case for China. He said, in comparison, the trade war is definitely more disadvantageous for China because China depends heavily on the U.S. market. The U.S. itself is a huge market. The key issue is that after China made the first move, no other countries followed, which is probably the most troublesome problem for China. If Vietnam successfully negotiates with the U.S. and benefits from it, it will attract many other countries to follow suit and negotiate as well.
Let me pause for a second and advise that you can get your free beginner's guide to understanding God's Word, a comprehensive resource filled with essential study points to support your spiritual growth throughout the year. Dive deeper into understanding the kingdom of God, your authority as a believer, and uncover your true identity in Christ. Additionally, explore the 31 Reasons 30-Day Prayer Challenge and the Gratitude Journal, powerful tools designed to strengthen your faith and draw you closer to the Lord. Start this incredible journey today. Find the links in the description box. Let's get back to the video. We'll gain respect again by the end of this. I'm telling you, from China, we will gain their respect and we will get back what is rightfully ours. And I truly believe that Trump will redeem America back to what we used to be. And again, put America first. And while others have taken advantage of our nation, while we have been like worker bees in the factories, funding every war, funding every country, just working just for everybody else instead of ourselves and not getting ahead like we could as a country, it's going to subside. It's going to ultimately come to an end, and they are going to understand that we are America for a reason. We are the home of the brave, and we are the people that everybody wants to be. And everybody wants to come over. There's a reason why everybody wants to come to America and live exceptionally. And we're going to do just that under the Trump administration. I have no doubt about that. And so I hope this really helped get clarity on what this whole conversation is around tariffs and why you have some people, declaring a little bit of, discomfort about certain products or purchases, it is only because it's China, because they want to play tit for tat. They want to operate in pride, and they want to say, yo, I'm not going to let you just kind of do us up. And so ultimately they will get done up because they mess with the right one. Trump is nothing to play with, and he's not here to play second fiddle, and he won't be handled. And I believe that's why a majority of us did vote Trump into office, because we know he's a boss. He's a boss. Listen, he took a bullet to the ear and got back up. I'm pressing forward. And so there's nothing at this point that China can do besides what Secretary Bassett said, is come to the table and negotiate. Come to the table and negotiate. And that's what I would encourage every country that thinks that they're going to play this trade war game with America to just bow down at this point, because we are only going to get stronger from here. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.